My name is Sarah Allen. I am the Community Manager for the Initiative for Cryptocurrencies and Contracts. IC3 is a blockchain research initiative of researchers at Carnegie Mellon, Cornell, Cornell Tech, EPFL, ETH Zurich, UC Berkeley, UCL, UIUC, and the Technion, and it's based at Cornell Tech in New York City. So our speaker today is Tyler Kell, who is a research engineer at IC3. He'll be giving us a summary of the current DeFi ecosystem. And Tyler, I will turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Let me share screen. So, I'd like to thank everyone for coming to this webinar today. This webinar originally was a sort of presentation I gave at an internal group meeting at IC3, sort of as a means to like update my sort of coworkers and the students and academic staff at IC3 about where the industry was as a sort of like, you guys have had your heads down working really hard on these super technical projects, and sort of when you have your sort of like view of the tree, you lose sight of the forest. Let me like catch everyone up on what's been going on for the last 6 to 8 months. It was very well received, and my professor Ari Jules, who I work with, suggested that we give this talk to the sort of general audience of the like wider IC3 community, since there's like some value in this talk, and that they thought that people would get stuff out of this. So that's why we're here today. This is intended sort of as a broad-based overview of like what's been going on, State of the Union kind of thing. And, before I start, I want to make sure that it's very clear that this is not an endorsement of any particular project, right? You will find that this presentation is very Ethereum heavy. Decentralized finance is very Ethereum heavy itself, right? If I mention a project, that doesn't mean I endorse that project. If I do not mention a project, that doesn't mean I don't endorse that project. This project, the list of projects here is essentially a list of projects that I've noticed in my professional role as a research engineer here at IC3. Part of my role as a research engineer is sort of to interface with private industry. And so I have to sort of keep up as part of my job. And so that's why it's a very natural fit for me to be giving this presentation. But that said, I am an imperfect human being, and this space is growing at a asymptotic rate. So there may be projects that I haven't heard of. And if I have skipped over your personal favorite project, I'm sorry. That doesn't mean that it's not a valid project. It just may be that I haven't heard of it, or that I didn't think it was a good fit for this talk. That doesn't mean it's a bad project. So yeah, that said, I am not a fiduciary. I'm not a financial advisor. None of this is investment advice. I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. I am merely expressing my opinions as someone who has to keep up for their job, like what's going on. That's all. So that said, in the interest of transparency and exposing any potential biases that I have, I thought I would make it very clear. I hold Bitcoin, Ethereum, Chainlink, Voyager token, Avalanche, Aave, Pangolin, BAG, Meebits, DAI, and USDC. And that is not an endorsement of any of those projects. But if you were worried that I'm biased, those are my potential biases. So that said, let's get started. Sarah, is there anything I missed?
And then if you could just hold questions until the end or type them in the chat. Everyone has the ability to unmute, so at the end you can ask questions.
Yeah, Sarah will be my enforcer. She's the big, bulky guy in front of the bar. So I think Sarah will be watching the chat. I will not be watching the chat because when I start screen sharing, it's hard to see the chat. So actually, I might be able to load the chat. One second, let me see if I can find it. Chat. Okay, yeah, I've got the chat loaded. So feel free to ping things in the chat as we go along, or hold your questions to the end. But I'll probably try and leave some time at the end to take questions as needed. But it may be hard for me to see questions as they roll along during the meeting. Okay, last thing, follow me on Twitter at Relit29. I actually didn't write it in this document, but follow me on Twitter, follow IC3 on Twitter, follow IC3 on YouTube. Sarah, where else are we?
Those are the important ones. Also our website and at c3org.org.
Yeah, so, you know, if you want to keep abreast with us and the sort of academic side of the industry and what's going on in academia, like this is how you keep in touch with us. And this is me on Twitter, the guy with the mask. So let's get started. So the way that I started this presentation when I gave it in March, it's now June, and I've had to change this presentation in the last 3 months. That's how fast the industry is going. There's so much going on at all times that you have to sort of keep abreast as best you can. So in the last 6 to 8 months, what we've seen is a large adoption uptick of users of cryptocurrencies in general, broadly. Like, you know, you've seen these companies like big companies like Tesla, who else? MicroStrategy buy Bitcoin publicly, right? But even sort of on the like, you know, retail side of things, we've seen a lot more transactions. And this has led to extraordinary gas costs and transaction fees. So right now, these gas costs look pretty good. 30 Gwei is ridiculously cheap. I wish I had transactions to submit right now. But especially in March when I was giving this talk, but even still through May, you know, we've had gas prices consistently above 100 Gwei. And to people who don't submit transactions on the network, let me explain to you why this matters. So this Uniswap swap thing on Etherscan, right now it's showing like about $15 to $20 in order to transfer a token from one token to another, say like Chainlink token to DAI, the US dollar, right? Like trading on centralized exchanges is, you know, they may charge you a 0.01% fee or something like that. On decentralized exchanges, and we'll get to that a little bit later, I'm not sure how technical our audience is, but there are cryptocurrency exchanges that are sort of decentralized and live on the blockchain. When gas gets above 100 Gwei, this becomes like $100 to do a swap, right? Like to trade X for Y, it becomes like $100. Or to do any sort of smart contract interaction, it becomes very expensive. And this is a big deal. Like this is annoying and a problem for people who actually use the network. So, you know, you can see here, like on April 8th, the average gas price was 124 Gwei. And that's been consistent in my experience because I do submit transactions regularly, and I will tell you it has been above 100. So this has been a problem for the industry. So in the last 6 to 8 months, we've seen a rise of a couple of solutions to this. We've seen ETH 2.0, we've seen ETH Killers, we've seen layer 2 solutions, and I'm going to talk about cross-chain stuff as well. So on the ETH 2.0 side of things, so Ethereum is a blockchain. Obviously, it has smart contracts. It runs using proof of work and Nakamoto style of consensus, right? This same sort of mining stuff that we've heard of since, you know, 2008, since the launch of Bitcoin. But it's been on the sort of radar of the like people developing Ethereum and the sort of management team, you know, developing the core protocol to upgrade to proof of stake or solutions that like don't use Nakamoto consensus, right? So they might have like these validators validating transactions and no one's actually mining them. They're just sort of, you know, agreeing on what the right transactions are via other methods. I don't want to get too deep into that rabbit hole, but you know, this is supposed to be more ecologically friendly because you're not burning as much electricity, etc. So ETH 2.0, the way that the Ethereum Foundation has been structuring this transition to proof of stake has been this like very slow process that we've been talking about for literally like 3-4 years. But in the last like 6 to 8 months, especially, we've seen a rise of validators. So they've started this like validator chain, which is like running in parallel, and it's not actually like validating any specific transactions yet, but we'll start validating layer 1 transactions like previous like normal Ethereum transactions as we get out of this like beta phase and into like the real world. So the adoption on this has been pretty big. You see here we have like 153,000 validators. That's 153,000 different computers like getting behind here to like go do this thing. And there's staking. Proof of stake works on stake, so you have to like lock up your money in order to be allowed to validate transactions. And just yesterday or today, there was 4 million ether staked, which at current US dollar prices is about $12 billion. So this is a big deal. So this has been a very slow migration, but it is happening. I leave these other sort of informational sites as sort of references as well, like the next other sort of proof of stake chains, this sort of like in the last year have been developed, like have on the order of 4 million or 4 billion and $38 billion locked. So there's a fair amount of money getting sort of transitioning to proof of stake. Yes, I will post my Google Doc. Probably I'll link it on my Twitter. I'm happy to email it out if that's better for people. I don't care, but I will post my Google Doc after the talk. Yeah, so and then there's a subreddit dedicated to this sort of validator, like running a validator and participating in this like proof of stake transition. And it's very popular, and there's a pretty big community. We can maybe check right now, depending on how fast my internet is. 26,000 members in this subreddit, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but some of those 26,000 people are undoubtedly doing things. So the next thing I want to talk about is ETH Killers. So as I mentioned, this gas problem. About 3 months ago, when I was giving this talk internally at IC3, I really had thought that like ETH Killers might have like a really solid chance of supplanting Ethereum. And that was because I was seeing the rise of things like Binance Smart Chain, which is a sort of centralized alternative to Ethereum that runs the same virtual machine, that runs the same smart contracts. You have the entirely same interface. If you're a programmer, you type the same program and it runs on both chains the same. The only difference is who's mining. And as you can see, and I updated these numbers 30 minutes ago, Binance Smart Chain is doing more transactions per day than Ethereum. So there's a lot of interest in these quote unquote ETH killers, these alternatives to ETH. And they're basically just, you know, alternative cryptocurrencies that are trying to sort of steal some of Ethereum's market share or like help Ethereum process more transactions and people meet their needs. So for reference, Bitcoin has been consistently doing around 200 to 300,000 transactions a day in the last sort of 6 months. And Ethereum has been doing around like 1.2 to 1.5 million transactions a day. So you see some of these numbers are changing and growing. You know, we when we go on CoinGecko and we see these large market cap tokens, like, you know, some of these alternatives such as Avalanche or Cardano or Polkadot, which all claim to be like these proof of stake coins that want to also be Ethereum compatible. They run, you know, the same smart contract programming languages and whatnot. They're growing. They're small, but they're growing. And I would say that this number I updated this morning jumped from like 30,000 to 50,000 in the last 3 months, whereas these were a little bit more consistently at the same level. But that's still like a lot of transactions. Perhaps a more friendly approach, alternative to trying to replace Ethereum is this sort of layer 2 set of solutions. So the Ethereum Foundation themselves have a document that sort of talks about all of these and that compares and contrasts some of the like layer 2 solutions for Ethereum. These sort of have two different flavors. Some of them are like, we're launching our own blockchain like these guys, but we want to be Ethereum compatible, or we like the Ethereum ecosystem. We're not trying to replace Ethereum. So that would be things like Matic and XDAI, these kinds of things where they have their own blockchain almost. And I've listed here and where possible, all of the transactions, and then the like transactions per day. And some you can see are much more popular in terms of transactions per day than others. So Loopring operates a zero knowledge based, ZK snark based approach to like batching up transactions on a layer 2 and then like finalizing them on chain. And that's the same sort of approach taken by a number of these solutions, such as Optimism, Arbitrum, Starkware, Matter Labs, ZK Sync. All of these sort of will do all your transactions over on a side chain and then like batch all of the delta state changes and then sort of agree on everything and push it to the layer 1, this Ethereum main chain. And they've been growing a lot, and there's a lot of transactions happening on these things in the last 6 months. XDAI in specific is like actually a big deal, and I've seen stats showing that it's been the number 3 by number of transactions cryptocurrency period, like Binance Smart Chain, Ethereum, XDAI, number of transactions higher than Bitcoin, higher than all these other things per day. So yeah, so these things are real. People are using it. You know, I think the largest sort of use case that people seem to want to use these things for is still decentralized like exchanges, like swapping tokens. Loopring operates a decentralized exchange. That's probably their biggest sort of use case. XDAI I've used for NFTs, which we'll talk about later. But you know, these are all, I can only report the numbers that I see on the Explorer. So I can't tell you whether or not Matic is doing wash trading. I, you know, vaguely believe it could be real. I see people talking about Matic on Twitter all the time. But yeah, I mean, these are fair questions. Are these numbers real? Who knows? It's entirely possible that they're sort of manufacturing, like doing wash trading, but you know, all of that wash trading is going to cost a lot of money. So I guess the people running it must be really confident. One thing that I want to mention, is just kind of funny, and this, there we go. It's kind of funny. So one of the L2 solutions is Arbitrum. Stephen Goldfeder is a former coworker of mine, and he now works for Arbitrum, and they launched on Friday, so like 3 days ago. So this is like very current, very new, like really like on the cutting edge. These things are happening now, and they're gaining adoption now. Starkware, I couldn't find any numbers for. Arbitrum, I didn't even try because it launched 2 days ago. You know, the ZK scan as well. The sort of Ethereum developer documentation mentions a bunch of these technologies, and I don't even know all of them. So it's hard to keep up. I mentioned the ones that I'm sort of familiar with and see and hear on Twitter more frequently. And then I wanted to talk about cross-chain stuff IRL. So these layer 2 solutions are trying to do the same tokens and trying to do the same coins as everyone else, right? These layer 2, and actually, I see a bunch of people hopping into the doc. Let me just dump it in the chat for people. There. So if you want to hop in the doc, there's a link for you. But you know, these layer 2 solutions are all trying to sort of duplicate all of these like tokens and state that's stored on Ethereum. And you get a unique set of problems when you have these layer 2 solutions trying to mimic Ethereum. So what I wanted to mention now was this this set of problems. So this came up like 3 months ago when I was making this presentation. We saw this unique set of security concerns where you have these ideas of multi-chain bridging, where you're trying to move a token from Ethereum to XDAI or XDAI to Binance Smart Chain, these other things. And so you get these sort of unique security concerns where you can like almost have double spend attacks. You know, James Presswich mentions like namespacing problems. How do I want to like make sure that my contracts don't like confuse which chain I'm using? So there's security concerns that happen when you launch these tokens and have the same VM across multiple cryptocurrencies. things to keep in mind. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was this, which I found incredible, was this Makoto Inoue, who works for ENS, if I remember correctly, found a way to do arbitrage across different currency exchanges. Because what we're seeing when people launch all these layer 2 solutions are these bridges, which like move a token from Binance Smart Chain to Ethereum and vice versa. And so naturally what happens is you get arbitrage. So you have these sort of like decentralized exchanges running on these different things. And in this specific case, Makoto Inoue wrote a arbitrage bot that was arbitraging a cryptocurrency exchange on Matic and moving the money over, I think, to Binance Smart Chain, if I remember correctly, and like doing that arbitrage across cryptocurrency chains. And I think this is the future of arbitrage. I don't know how well developed this is yet, but I definitely expect to see more of this in the future. So that's what's been happening sort of at the protocol level in the last 6 to 8 months. Time check, 9:25. All right, moving on. The next thing I want to talk about is replacing traditional finance tools. So in the last 6-ish months, we've seen a rise of a variety of replacements for traditional finance tools. So you might see things like tokenized securities, right? Stocks on the blockchain. In this specific case, we're talking about FTX, and now I got to figure out which one of these. Yep, this is it. So one that I found very notable was Airbnb was launched on this FTX exchange, which is a cryptocurrency exchange in Germany, if I remember correctly. This is a centralized exchange. But this is like a tokenized version of Airbnb. And so this was supposed to mimic the price of the Airbnb stock. But they actually launched this before Airbnb went live at IPO. So if you were paying attention, you could purchase this stock before IPO, get in on Airbnb before IPO. I think this is a huge deal. This is a game changer for IPOs specifically. Right now, this is in its infancy. They only support like a small list of stocks, but Tesla and Airbnb are two of them. I don't remember all the other ones. It looks like they support Coinbase and whatever this hood is. But I expect to see more of this in the future, where we see sort of stocks on the blockchain. And it doesn't just happen on the sort of centralized exchanges. It's also happening on the exchanges that lives in smart contracts. So Synthetics is a decentralized exchange that lives on Ethereum, and they also support trading cryptocurrencies and commodities. So this is the synthetic oil, tokenized oil token that they're trading, and this is supposed to represent the price of a barrel of oil, and it's $67.75. If I went to finance.yahoo.com, I don't want to do that for synthetic oil because I can't do that, but we can do it for Tesla. Yahoo.com/quote/TSLA. Dyslexia. So we see that Tesla is $624 on the NASDAQ. And, this synthetic Tesla is $625. So it's close. And, there's a variety of arbitrage bots and, Oracle systems that are providing prices and ensuring that this token is, tracking the price of Tesla on the NASDAQ. So you can now trade Tesla on the blockchain. And this is decentralized. If I remember correctly, Synthetics does it on layer 2, but don't quote me on that. I'm not familiar. I don't pay that much close of attention. But this is, I think, kind of revolutionary and showing where the industry is going. This is the last 6 to 8 months. Next, futures contracts. So this I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know, is this going to show up or they get rid of it? They might have gotten rid of it. DYDX was for a while trading futures. I'll come back to this. Let's talk about options. Where is open? Did I open it? Nope, that's compound. I have so many tabs. So would you like options on the blockchain? We can provide options on the blockchain. So this service lets you buy options, calls, puts, the same sort of like options you might experience on the NASDAQ, but instead you can buy it on the price of Bitcoin or the price of Ethereum. And so here you see like calls on Ethereum or on Bitcoin. The strike price is $45,000. This is all the same traditional finance tools, but now it's on the blockchain. This runs on Ethereum smart contracts. So, you know, as we're seeing this move of replacing traditional finance tools to the blockchain in smart contracts, exchanges is very pretty straightforward. Do I have anything about? Okay, let me move back to DYDX then, because I guess should probably replace this. So rather than futures contracts, DYDX trades something called perpetuals. This may not be familiar to everyone in the audience. This is a sort of cryptocurrency specific financial tool that was first developed, I believe, by the people at BitMEX. These are futures contracts that have no expiration date. And so they sort of have this automated settlement. I think it depends on the service. I think this is every 24 hours, maybe. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into it. But this is all sort of decentralized. These people use Starkware, which was, I mentioned earlier, was one of the layer 2 solutions. So they're doing all of this trading on layer 2 and occasionally settling to layer 1. So you deposit money in USDC on layer 1, and then you can sort of trade on this. But as you notice, United States citizens, because of the SEC, we're second-class citizens in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. We legally are not supposed to be trading on this. But you know, they have a variety of DeFi tokens that you can buy these perpetual contracts on that last forever. And, you know, you can have ridiculous quantities of leverage, like up to 25x leverage. And it's very easy to get wiped out. But, you know, if you think you really have conviction, you can sort of go in long and use ridiculous quantities of leverage. So these are, you know, futures contracts are also moving on to the blockchain, let's say. The blockchain is also specifically replacing exchanges. That this is sort of old news, I think, to a lot of people. You know, this has been around since 2017, 2016, 2018. But you know, these decentralized exchanges are you know, maybe replacing your NASDAQ and NYSE. Now you can sort of trade these different tokens on Uniswap or AirSwap or any number of these like swapping decentralized exchange contracts. You know, and this is from March. I didn't update this, but you can see that there's a variety of these services, and this is only on Ethereum. They're all, every single cryptocurrency exchange has its own big decentralized exchange now, and they all basically use the same interface that they stole from Uniswap version 2 or whatever, because Uniswap was open source. So they all look like this. This one is an Avalanche cryptocurrency backed cryptocurrency exchange, right? So like this lives on the Avalanche network, but you know, you can swap tokens, right? Like I can go from Link to dollars. DAI USDC. Let's do USDC. You on here? No, I don't like BUSD. USDT is crap. Let's use DAI. So this is a cryptocurrency, or this is a token tied to the peg to the dollar. And you can see that one Chainlink token is $29, which is about what it is. If we checked Coinbase, I'm sure it would be around there. It's been around there for a while. And so people are using these. They have lots of volume. In fact, actually, this is a bad one. Let's do Uniswap. Uniswap, the big thing in the last 6 months for Uniswap, which is one of the biggest exchanges. I hope they own that domain. Nope, they don't. Okay, knock it off. Yes, that. It's .org. Use Uniswap. So the big thing with Uniswap recently in the last 6-ish months was, you know, here, Aave to dollars. You know, here's one. Was they launched this version 3 of their exchange. You can see here, it says version 3. But they also have older versions of the exchange. And because everything's a decentralized smart contract, you know, you can still interact with the old exchange and it still has liquidity and still people are still trading on it. Charts. So, you know, Uniswap is doing $1.75 billion in volume a day. Those are big numbers. So replacing the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange on the blockchain. This also comes with its own sets of unique problems and security concerns, as you might expect. There's actually a phenomenon called impermanent or divergent loss, where liquidity providers, people that are like providing the actual like tokens to exchange with, that are like market makers almost, you can lose money if you operate as a liquidity provider. If the price of the coin, operates in a direction that you don't expect, you can lose money. So, this is very much the Wild West, and there's all sorts of security and sort of financial concerns that, happen when you have these unique technologies that are pushing the boundaries. I don't want to go too deeply into this because it's a pretty technical topic, but I just wanted to point out that there are security concerns and sort of unique problems that occur. And then you get this phenomenon called yield farming, of which I think Compound is probably, and SushiSwap are sort of well known for this, where you sort of put in your tokens, you sort of stake tokens with this smart contract, and then this service will go and try and find the best exchange to be a market maker for and provide liquidity for, to get the most amount of money and fees. And they'll hop around as the sort of price of one exchange or the volume of one exchange goes up or down. And so this is a phenomenon. This has been very popular for the last 2 years, maybe. Lending. So in case all of the previous traditional finance tools weren't enough, we're also replacing what banks do, loaning money to people. So, this has been a pretty unique and cool thing that has happened on the blockchain is loans on the blockchain. So the big, sorry, I'm going to just delete. This is another decentralized exchange. This is all the tabs that I had open before the meeting started. So these people are lending money, and as you can see, you might lend money and have you have to pay interest on that money, obviously, just like a normal loan. If I was logged in and had my MetaMask hooked up, it would show how much money I was allowed to borrow and what my interest rate on that money would be. I don't have MetaMask on this web browser, and I could go to Firefox, but it's fine. But at the same time, not only is it sort of decentralized and you can sort of borrow money from a smart contract, but you can also give money to the smart contract to lend other people and earn money on that money. So you might get 10% a year or whatever it is on these different tokens that the Aave smart contract lends out. And they also operate a variety of other financial services. But one unique thing in the last 6 to 12 months that has happened is this idea of flash loans. So this is a unique sort of type of loan that is enabled by the existence of cryptocurrencies that has never existed before. You could not have had this in the traditional financial world. And what that is it's a atomic loan. So in the space of one transaction, you loan money to someone, they do something with it, and then they return it to you, all in one transaction, all in a smart contract enabled way. So in this transaction, which is on the Kovan testnet, I believe this was actually me. I made this transaction. I borrowed money from the Aave testnet instance and used it to do an arbitrage transaction on the Uniswap exchange that was on the testnet. And so I borrowed some wrapped ether, and traded it on Uniswap for MakerDAO, and then traded that for DAI, and then traded that for USDC, and then sort of took an arbitrage profit off of that. And people are using this technology, this sort of flash loan technology, this instant loan that you take the money and return it immediately, for all sorts of wacky and unique things. A lot of things have been attacks on Oracle solutions, like when you see price divergence between an exchange and the real world. People have been profiting off of that using flash loans. But because the money is returned in the same transaction, you can basically give as much money as you feel comfortable with, right? Like the big risk with loans was always, what if you loan someone money and they don't give it back to you? Well, here you know that they're going to give it back to you because the transaction will fail if they don't. So this is unique and very cool. I think an interesting future of technology and loans. Moving on, philanthropy, decentralized organizations. So we've seen the rise of a variety of sort of philanthropy-based organizations, a variety of VC funds almost. So this is like a VC fund that operates with their sort of constitution in a smart contract, and you have to be a accredited investor in the United States to be able to operate with them. But you can give your money to them, and the VC fund will invest in blockchain projects and supposedly make money. And they clearly have a lot of money. People are doing this in the real world. Gitcoin, like philanthropy and donating to open source projects, like trying to make sure that developers are getting paid for working on open source projects. Very popular in the industry, well known in the Ethereum ecosystem. Popular project. For example, one of the projects that they fund is the Archive Node project, which runs Ethereum archive nodes, nodes that sort of keep Ethereum state for research purposes. And we've actually benefited from this directly. I used the Archive Node program. These people give free archive nodes to people who are doing research on Ethereum. And so I've actually benefited from this directly. Chase helped me out. Mystic Region helped me out running an archive node for some of the research that we did here at IC3. So they're making a difference. Metacartel, another sort of VC fund, right? They and also running on the blockchain, rather, when they say like their sort of constitution is on the blockchain. So this has been these DAOs, these decentralized autonomous organizations, like governance organizations for, different needs. Venture funds is just one of them. This is like a philanthropy DAO dedicated to like helping the ecosystem get tools, and they have votes for whether or not we should fund something, these kinds of things. And then Aragon, which is a project basically like wholly dedicated to supporting people who want to create DAOs. So they will help you set up a organization with voting and governance and all these things that runs on the blockchain. Insurance. I think this is interesting. So this is a insurance company that, like State Farm or whatever your insurance company might be, that insures your car or your house. This is an insurance company that runs on the blockchain, and you can sort of join and give them money, and they will sort of insure projects and collect fees on that. And they've paid out claims. The BZX blockchain that got hacked several months ago in 2020, they paid out a claim for that, so that the BZX blockchain would be able to continue, or not blockchain, exchange would be able to continue operating. So, and as a governance system, like the members of the mutual fund will, I guess, vote on whether or not to approve the insurance claim. And you can see that they do accept reasonable claims. I don't know specifics of all of these, but they've paid out some claims. There, that was a lot of money, 27.768 million. I don't know if that was dollars. Oh, that was the number of votes for that. So, insurance on the blockchain. Real estate. Real estate tokenization is an interesting one. I'm going to give two examples that are not actually in the real world, but this is also coming to the real world. TM. As I'm sure you guys know, real estate is a very regulated space, right? Like governments are very sort of have their fingers in that pie. And when you go to buy a piece of land, you sort of, will have to go down to your local courthouse and sign a piece of paper. There's no particular reason you have to do this on paper. And so, one of the pushes that some people are doing is this push to digitizing these records. And some people want to put this on the blockchain. So 2 projects that are running right now that are not in the real world, but I expect to see this happen in the real world soon, are the Sandbox and Decentraland. So these are like tokens that are tied to a piece of land in a video game that you can purchase and change and manipulate. And all of these tokens are basically on the Ethereum blockchain. So you could buy this piece of land, I guess, for $296 if you wanted. Okay, that is replacing traditional finance tools. Let's talk about traditional tech. Domain names, right? So when you go to www.google.com, Google had to buy that domain name. One of the big projects, this is an older project, it's been around for a couple of years, but it's been seeing a lot of more adoption as time goes on, and you'll see that wallets will accept it, is domain names. So I own relit29.f. That's my handle on Twitter and my handle on the internet in general. And you'll see that these things are on the blockchain. So this is a smart contract that supports domain names on the blockchain. And you can go look up my domain name and find out my payment address, which is very handy when you open up a wallet and you say, oh, I want to pay Tyler. Instead of paying 0x006, whatever the hell, now you can pay relit29.f. And this also lists the other names that I own. I own my boss's name in case he ever decides to use it. I have it. And you can sort of buy random domain names. What's an M? Ford. Does someone own? Someone better own Ford.f. Yeah, someone owns Ford.f. I'm sure that in 20 years, Ford will pay millions of dollars to buy this domain name, just like they did in the 90s. So, video games. I mentioned this earlier, this Decentraland and these Sandbox are video games, but there's like a variety of video games on the blockchain. CryptoKitties is one of the oldest. This is from 2017, but the point still stands that people are developing video games and interacting with the blockchain as part of their video games. So this was like a project where you had little like cats that were on the blockchain and you could buy and sell them and breed them to like make new cats. But Pokemon on the blockchain, trading cards, popular blockchain use case. Dark Forest. So this is a ZK Snark based like side chain based video game where you like, I haven't actually played it yet. I really want to play it. I haven't gotten around to playing it, but you can like, I think it's kind of like Battleship where you don't know where the other guy is, but you're trying to guess where he is. But games on the blockchain, let's say. And I expect to see more growth in this as well. And then 47, good. So that if I wrap up around 50, that gives us some time for questions or anything else. So the last big topic I want to talk about is NFTs, because NFTs are very hot right now, or they've been hot for the last 6 months. They were really hot in like February. I don't know if they're still as hot now. But non-fungible tokens. So we talked a bit about real estate sales. The big thing in the last like 6-ish months has been these sort of NFTs, which are these like tokenized artworks where the artwork might be stored on the blockchain or the artwork might be linked to a piece of art in the real world, but the blockchain controls who technically owns it. And I went back and forth on this topic. I actually think that this is way more cool than people realize. I think a lot of people, their gut reaction is, oh, this is stupid, right? Like, why do I need the blockchain to tell me who owns a piece of art, right? Or like, why do I need to put a piece of art on the blockchain? Anyone can copy a digital image. What makes that special? And for a long time, that was where I was at on it. I was like, NFTs are stupid. Artwork on the blockchain is stupid. Like, and I can right click and hit save as, and now I have the artwork. A couple of things changed my mind. One particular thing that really changed my mind was a thread by DC Investor, who I don't know if I linked this entire thread. I might. No, this is his account. I don't think I'd link the entire thread, but that's fine. Oh, I do. Where are you? So this thread is the thread that convinced me that NFTs were like for real and legit. And I'll go into a little bit why I think that is, but bouncing back, you can get a photo of the Mona Lisa printed on a piece of paper and put it on your wall. You can right click and hit save as on the Wikipedia page for the Mona Lisa. That doesn't mean you own the Mona Lisa, right? The Louvre museum in France owns the Mona Lisa. We hope anyway. So this notion of ownership decoupled from the actual physical item is not as controversial, I think, necessarily as people think of when they first think about it. So that's changed my mind. But as we've seen in the last 6 months, NFTs have become very popular. This post was originally as a joke, where someone compared the price of what someone paid for a CryptoPunk, which is an NFT, a picture of this guy with a headband. This picture of a guy with a headband sold for looks like $7 million, which was more than the United States paid for Alaska in 1867 dollars. Note, this is not adjusted for inflation, but that's still an insane amount of money. And the sort of cheapest CryptoPunk right now, I believe, is $38,000. So we've seen an explosion of interest in this space and an explosion of money in this space, and that's become a very popular topic on Twitter because of that. So the first NFT that like got a lot of attention was CryptoPunks. This is from like 2016, 2017, something like that. But when I think about big NFTs, CryptoKitties themselves were an NFT, the video game I mentioned earlier. That one was a big one for the industry, and I think a lot of people have heard of CryptoKitties. They remember in 2017 in the summer when CryptoKitties was basically all the rage, and you know, in some sense crashed the Ethereum network. You couldn't get a transaction through if you know, in reasonable amounts of time. So this has been, you know, a popular topic for a while. And you know, people are making money on this, people are enjoying it. You know, where the space is going, who knows, but there's been an explosion of projects and popularity. If you go on the OpenSea system service, this is like eBay but for NFTs. You can buy and sell NFTs on the blockchain, decentralized. This website is just a front end to the Ethereum blockchain, basically. And you know, these popular different projects, this Bored Ape Yacht Club selling pictures of apes, and people are buying them for, you know, thousands of dollars. Whether or not that's stupid, I leave it up to you. But you know, hash masks are a popular project. Now, all of this sort of seems kind of dumb in that, like, it's just a piece of art. Why are you paying so much money for it? But you know, there are some unique aspects to this blockchain sort of ecosystem. Unisocks, which is a project launched by the Uniswap people, they have tokenized socks. And so you would, in order to receive the actual sock from the Uniswap company, they would mail you the sock after you destroy the token. And so you have this sort of idea of like, as the more people destroy their socks, the socks become rarer and rarer to buy, and the price of the sock goes up. And you'll see that like one sock today is $58,000. I've seen it as high as hundreds of thousands of dollars for a sock. So, you know, there are unique sort of aspects to this, you know, experimenting with supply and demand. This Sachs project from like last week launched. This was one of the people who works for Gitcoin, that philanthropy based organization, launched a series of hacky sacks, which they're tokenizing and selling on the blockchain. And this raised a bunch of money as well. You know, people are selling t-shirts where the token is sort of on the blockchain and it's sold on the blockchain, and they'll mail you a t-shirt. So this is one aspect of NFTs. But another interesting aspect of NFTs is this idea of generative design. So you might have like algorithmically generated art where the sort of seed of the algorithm that makes the artwork is stored on chain. And so this is very like tangible, because like if you own the seed, then you own the thing that produces the artwork. So this is unique and like sort of a different way of playing with the technology and art, like where they intersect. Tony Essieri has this amazing thread on Twitter where he talks about like an experiment where one might envision cryptographically locked artworks, where you might have some cryptographic hash stored on the chain that has an algorithm that creates a piece of art, but you can sort of, using private key cryptography, unlock that hash and get a completely different piece of art that only you will ever see, but the locked version is stored on chain. So there's whole sort of aspects to this technology that have been sort of unexplored, and we can see new sort of horizons in art. So I don't think NFTs are as stupid as people think they are. I don't know what this was, but so this is, this is one prominent investor who's well known in the industry. All of the NFTs he owns, you can publicly see them on OpenSea. You can see he owns a Unisoc, and he's willing to sell it for $399 ETH, which is an obscene amount of money. One other thing I would like to say is well, this is just a bunch of like cryptocurrency people doing cryptocurrency things. Not really. This is NBA Topshot. This is a company that is partnered with the North American Basketball Association for selling visual trading cards. They have like little videos, clips of videos from basketball games, and they're tokenizing those videos and selling the ownership of that video on a blockchain. This is the same project that had CryptoKitties. They launched their own blockchain because Ethereum was too slow for them. So they have their own Flow blockchain, and these sort of tokens are on the Flow blockchain. I actually tried to buy an NBA Topshot because I was interested in I wanted to see how it would work. And when I tried to do it, multiple credit card transactions failed, so I gave up. I got like too frustrated with it. So as you can see, we're still in the nascent early phases of the technology. And then trading cards, I believe this is trading cards. Oh, prediction markets. You sort of combine prediction markets and NFTs. Who you think will win the the tennis game, and if whoever wins the tennis game gets to keep the trading card, or sell it and buy it later and make money on it. So I think that just about wraps up everything I wanted to talk about for this sort of state of the DeFi ecosystem talk. I have 4 minutes, which gives us maybe time for like 2 or 3 questions. Sarah?
Sure. Yep. Sounds good. And everyone should be able to unmute themselves. If you are not able to, raise your hand and I can manually unmute you.
I'm going to close this screen now. I'm going to hide the desktop screen because I think everyone, if the link to this is in the chat, I'll dump it again, but I don't see the point in keeping it up. So are there any questions, comments, concerns? Anyone got anything they want to say before we return to our normal lives?
And I see one question from John in the chat, Tyler, for you.
Okay, so the question is regarding L2, how different is moving a token between chains versus a side chain versus moving a transaction to a roll up and then settling state on chain? That's an interesting question. How different is it? So I would say that there's some difference in the sort of on the tech side, I would say there is a small difference. I mean, obviously there are differences because there are different technologies, but one of the differences that I think is kind of important is that ZK Snarks, this technology that underlies the sort of L2, a lot of these L2 solutions, I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them, is that you can sort of do these transactions and then prove that you did the transactions correctly, that they're valid, and all these other sort of key aspects you want about the transaction, and then compress those transactions into a smaller form that's like anyone can validate that sort of hash or that sort of validity. And so there's some space savings there. And you don't need to keep the full state of everything that ever happened, as long as you can sort of validate this this hash that represents all those transactions. So I would say that's one big difference, because a lot of the other layer 2s or like smart contract supporting side chains are just basically the same proof of work or proof of stake sort of technology, but they're just like starting over fresh, so they look like they're faster. And this is actually a problem that Binance Smart Chain has run into, is like they've run into being slow because they hit a lot of users, and that's what happens when you have a lot of users on a blockchain. There's just like this scaling problem that no one seems to be able to solve. So I think L2 is probably the future of scaling. ZK Snarks is probably the future of scaling, rather. But we'll see. It's going to take some time to work those out. Second question: Can you use ETC instead of ETH to save gas fees on smart contracts? Yeah, I mean, you can always move to another token. There's a bunch of EVM compatible chains. ETC is one of them. Can you use it to save gas fees? Yeah, I mean, you can use anything to save gas fees. There's a sort of trust, level of trust in the cryptocurrency, sort of security concerns that you have to balance against using random coins. But yeah, you can save money by using other blockchains. The virtual machine is sort of what matters in that sense. So as long as your virtual machine is compatible, and a lot of these are using the Ethereum virtual machine. So as long as your virtual machine is compatible, you'll get the same output for your same inputs. Any other questions? What is the incentive of governments to move real estate to the blockchain? That is a fantastic question. Do you want my real opinion? So this is a similar sort of question is playing out in the legal space in general, right? Like a lot of these legal contracts need to be digitized. I don't know that we're going to see large scale adoption of sort of real estate on the blockchain. I don't necessarily know that that's going to happen, because I don't necessarily know that there is a huge amount of value. A lot of these sort of real estate partnerships have been kind of gimmicky. This is why I mentioned the video game examples, because I'm not confident in the real world examples right now yet. I think we will see digitization of these assets, but whether or not it's a problem that quote unquote needs a blockchain, I think is yet to be seen. There's no particular reason that you need to store it on a blockchain unless you were to live in a place where the government is not trusted, right? Like there are a lot of countries in the world where the governments are sort of not necessarily the most competent. And so trust in those systems is not there. You get some nice trust assumptions with public blockchains that you don't necessarily get when you have centralized solutions to these problems. So I could see digitization of these assets being pushed to blockchains in low trust environments. When using a token to represent a physical object, doesn't destroying the token defeat the purpose to resell the physical object? On one hand, it is good that you can cash in for a physical object, but don't people want to resell? Great question. Yeah, that is the point of Unisocks, I would say. The existing Unisocks that still have a token for them are like very valuable because they still have the token. And when you burn that token and you receive your sock, yeah, you've gotten your cool socks. And those cool socks may trade on the quote unquote black market for large amounts of money too. But like the sort of societally based notion of what a Unisock is that token. And so the token is what's valuable. Just like the societally based notion of what the Mona Lisa is the one that's in the Louvre, not your art print that's on your wall. Next round of this about oracles. Shrug. Oracle technologies are cool. Yes. Next IC3 event is apparently the summer camp. We will definitely have topics on oracles at the summer camp. You should all attend the summer camp. It's dope. How much time do I have? Sarah, I don't know how much when we want to roll over. I don't care about time, but
Sure. Why don't you go for the last one that's in the chat, and then we will wrap up.
Wrap it up. Okay. Do all DAOs assume a vote in proportion to the amount of tokens each person holds? So not one person would vote, but more like shareholder voting. Yeah, this is an excellent question, like a really, really solid question. So one person, one vote is very hard on the blockchain. Voting is electronic voting is a hard problem, like a legitimately hard problem. Academic research going back to like the 70s and 80s on this topic, no one's really solved it because there's huge amounts of problems in electronic voting, fraud, bribery. We have a post about bribery on the IC3 blog. I don't have it in front of me, but if you go on the IC3 blog, we can find that post. Or Sarah says she's going to go find it. But voting on blockchain is hard. The thing with these one token, one vote is that it's easy and that it's sort of trustworthy in the sense that like the people who have more money should have more say is not necessarily like wrong in some ways. I think a lot of people want to see one person, one vote. I want to see one person, one vote, because I think democracy is important and oligarchy is undesirable. But oligarchy is easier to implement. So that's what we've got in a lot of these systems. I can't speak to any specific system. I can't speak to like Moloch DAO, how they work. I assume it's token votes. I think the DAO hack, when they tried to vote on how to respond to the DAO hack, that wasn't a very prominent token vote. Token votes exist. I have not yet seen a good voting solution for blockchain, period, and sentence. And I don't expect to see one maybe ever, because it's impossible to solve. The thing is that in the real world, when you go to vote, there's a certain amount of fraud that's considered acceptable, right? Like we expect to see some small level of fraud just because of human error, if nothing else. Finding that threshold electronically in the digital age is going to be hard. But it's going to exist because the same set of problems exists for real voting in IRL voting as opposed to digital voting. So that's an excellent question. I think that's going to wrap up our talk today. I hope people found it interesting and useful and educational. Sarah, anything you want to say? Oh, let me plug my Twitter again. Relyt29, RELYT29. What's the IC3 Twitter?
INITC3ORG.
Those are the Twitters. Follow me on Twitter so I can get clout and feel cool.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Tyler, for presenting today. And thanks to everyone who joined us. I would strongly encourage all of you to register for the IC3 Blockchain Camp, which will be a week of talks, including topics like DeFi, and then additional research talks if you're interested in state of research in blockchain from academic groups and IC3 partners. And that will be all for today. A recording of this will be available from the IC3 YouTube channel, which you can find linked on our website, initc3.org.